Oh, hey guys, it's me, Video Person 102. Today I'm reading the first 4 chapters of La La Land by Bekka911. She's cool. I like her. She's a cool author. So, how I'm gonna do this is, unless I have it urging me to finish the whole freaking story, I'm gonna be reading 4 chapters an episode. There's 17 chapters, so 4, 8, 12, 16. But instead of doing 16, I'll do an extra one for that one, so 5, so 17. Plus, the last chapter is usually never that long. Usually, the last chapter is just thank you guys for this and that, so there's probably 16 chapters. So, just 4 for each episode. Might as well get into it now. Also, don't forget to subscribe. Also, I'm going to be collabing with my friend Hunter soon. I'll leave his link in the description. Same with my friend Diamond Emerald. I'll leave her link in the description. I'll also leave Bekka911's Wattpad down in the description, as long as Diamond Emerald's Wattpad and my Wattpad. So basically, if you want to link to anything I just mentioned, it'll be down in the description. Also, don't forget to watch all my episodes on Bad Guy, which is the book before this. This is basically a book series, and you can't read one without reading the ones in front of it. I made that mistake by starting. Well, actually, I started with Virgil's, but then I went right to Logan's, then Roman's, then Patton's, and it got really confusing because I switched around Roman and Logan's. So make sure you read. Well, not read. You don't have to read it. I read it to you. I actually just finished that book a couple days ago. So you want to listen to Bad Guy or read it yourself, go on Wattpad or go on my YouTube channel. Also, I'm sorry this intro is taking so long, guys, but I want to thank each and every one of you for the views I got on my very first episode. All my videos have been crashing, but then I went and looked at my views for my first episode, and I have just about 40, which is the most my video has ever blown up in a week. Like, I post a video, it takes a month or so for it to get to, like, 40 views. It took a freaking week for it to get to 40 views. And thank you. Also, this book will be really easy for me to read because last book I had to use my monotone voice because I was playing Virgil most of the time. Now I'm playing Roman, so it's going to be a little bit easier on me. Thank you, Internet. If anyone asked, he was okay. He was so tired he couldn't really see, and he had so much on his mind that he didn't even know what he was thinking anymore. But he was perfectly fine. Honest. It wasn't anything he couldn't handle. He was just a little stressed. As long as nothing else was added to his workload, he would be fine. Roman? There was a tug deep in his stomach, then a sinking sensation, and he was in front of the camera. Thomas and Virgil. In front of the camera, Thomas and Virgil. He tried to keep his groan in. He really did. But it was out before he could register what was happening, and then Virgil was recoiling, and everything was still hazy. You called? He hid his shaky hands and grinned brightly. Thomas eyed him, lacking the usual enthusiasm. Yeah, there's a problem. My head is so empty you could store an entire Harry Potter series in there 5 times over. What? Virgil sighed from the stairs. What he means to say is that his creativity has run dry. Anything to say about that, Sir Sing-a-Lot? Roman's conjured confidence vanished like smoke on the wind and deflated slightly. I'm sorry, Thomas. I can't help it. There's so much for me to do lately. I haven't been able to keep up with your ideas. Virgil scoffed. You're literally creativity. Aren't you supposed to be full of Thomas's ideas? That's not... Roman rubbed his face, hoping it would dull his sudden headache. That's not how it works. Nobody's blaming you, Thomas explained gently. But Roman, I need these ideas. How else am I supposed to create a new video with fresh content? I'm sorry. There was a disbelieving snort from Virgil. Did you just apologize? Never thought I'd ever witness that. Virgil, can you not? Roman closed his hand into a fist before it could run through his hair and ruin his image. A similar scene with Pedin entered his mind, and he let out a deep breath. Just not today, please. They stared at him. He could feel them strip away layers of false bravado and confidence. He fidgeted, nervous and tired. Roman, do we need to talk about this? No, he said regally, holding his high head. Maybe he could still salvage this. But thank you. I do think I may pay a visit to Patton's room, draw some inspirations. Thomas gave a soft, searching look. As long as you're going to be okay. I'll be fine, Roman promised as he sank down. He directed his jumbled thoughts toward Thomas's mind, and he felt the familiar pull as he transported yet again. The place in which he appeared was not how it should have been. Instead of color and noise, there was static. The emptiness was white, and his hearing was hollow. He neglected his role as Thomas's creativity, and he needed to fix what he had broken. So he tried. He poured everything in his head into his hands, and he shaped it into creations of magic. He let his emotions paint the boundaries of the imagination, and he gave and gave until he had nothing else to give, and then he gave some more. He left Thomas's imagination still thinking that it wasn't enough. It was hard to keep himself upright as he walked back into his room, but he was determined to stay strong. His hopes of getting back to his room undisturbed were dashed as anxiety caught up to him and fell into step. The darker personality was quiet for a little while, rubbing the back of his head sheepishly. Sorry for earlier, he said. I didn't really think about what I was saying. Roman offered him somewhat a strained smile. I forgive you only because you're right. I had neglected my duty as Thomas's creativity, and he was suffering because of it. He wasn't angry at you, Princey. He was actually really concerned. You need to take care of yourself as well. The royal huffed slightly. Forget about it, J. Delightful. I am a prince. I'm not bothered by such trivial things. Taking care of yourself is trivial? I am royalty. My host is my top priority. I come in a very close second. Virgil raised his hand in defeat. All right, Princey. Just make sure you don't let Thomas's mind go blank again. Roman gave a winning smile. Never, he vowed. As soon as he made it to his room, he let the mask fall and he groaned, popping his tired shoulders. He loved Thomas. Of course he did. But sometimes Prince wondered if it was healthy to be one of his traits. He didn't sleep well. And of course advertisement. No one cares about your jewel pod stuff. We see you enough. Chapter 2. True to his word, Roman didn't forget to flood Thomas with ideas and inspiration. He poured all of his energy and power into his house until the boy was throbbing with energy, but the royal was so drained everything hurt when he breathed. But alas, he wouldn't let it break him, so he pushed past the weariness and held his head high. He was more than what the others thought of him to be. He was above them all. Not to mention, deceit was back, and Roman knew he was being manipulated with compliments, and he knew the others knew, but he couldn't help himself. It made him look egotistical, but he lived on compliments. He was literally Thomas's ego. He needed the boost every now and then. He spared himself no time for food, not because he didn't want to eat, but because he had so much to attend to that he really needed to get started. And he didn't have the time to eat. He was sure Patton would understand. The royal's first task was to visit Thomas's dream storage and set up a new dream plan for the host. If Thomas had nothing to work towards, there'd be no motivation, and without motivation, Thomas wouldn't function. The pressure weighed on his shoulders, but Roman ignored it and ran through some ideas of his own. If he could manipulate the ideas a little bit, he could fix Thomas's dreams and the video ideas into a one neat little bundle of brain energy, and then, whoa, Princey. He barely managed to avoid anxiety as he glanced up, the darker trait looking slightly stunned as Roman nearly plowed through him. Sorry, Roman apologized. I'm in a hurry. He tried to hurry past anxiety, but anxiety moved and blocked the way. Patton said you weren't at breakfast. Virgil, I have to go, Princey groaned, rubbing his temples. He needed to follow the train of thought he had right now, or it'd all be for nothing. Please, I'll eat later. I'm really busy right now. Hesitantly, anxiety moved aside and Roman sped off, too busy thinking and plotting to see a slightly concerned look on anxiety's face. Dorella knew about the darker traits brush with depression. Derek, and he really needed to sit down and formally apologize to his friend? He'd been rude and inconsiderate, as had Logan. Maybe they could talk about it when Roman didn't have so much to do. Great Zeus. He made it to the dreams and hurriedly organized a crude plan before refining it, adding his own thoughts here and there until he was satisfied. He had hoped to get it done before Thomas truly started the day, but the host had been up for a few hours now. He wouldn't really be starting on anything major that day. Next was the video ideas, and Roman calculated how much time would be required to develop an idea with Joan, see to any props, and then write the script. Of course, there was a camera set up and recording times and editing and... Chill, he whispered to himself harshly. One step at a time. By the time it had all been worked out, Roman was swaying on his feet and the day had worn on, but it was nearly time for him to sleep again. He didn't want to panic, didn't have the energy to panic, but he had so much more he was supposed to do. There wasn't enough time for him to do it. It physically was impossible. Sorry. His back straightened as soon as the thought crossed his mind. He wouldn't be stopped by the impossible. Physics meant nothing when he was creativity. His job never had a break. He was working 24/7, so he could do this. He just needed to knuckle down. He just needed to skip dinner. Whatever. Patton needed to understand that Roman had real work to do, and it was important for him to finish. It was vital that he didn't mess up and he didn't stall. Thomas needed him to do this. Letting out a bony, weary sigh, he strode down towards the confidence section in his domain, determined. He needed a lot of focus for this next bit, but he swore he could do it. He knew he could. English. Wow. When he got there, he was immediately confronted with trophies and Vine comments and follower counts, all proof of his success. It boosted his confidence and his ego, and Princey was satisfied with both, but he needed to give a fresh boost, otherwise Thomas would become fixed on only what he had, not what he could become, and Roman sucked in a breath to calm himself down. He couldn't get worked up like that. He had to stay focused and steady. He closed his eyes, held his hands, and breathed. He felt a warmth run through his body, scampering down his arms and leaving through his fingers. He knew if he opened his eyes right now, he'd see gold swirls in the air, clinging to an already manifest object to create new things. Something hissed in his ear, and Princey frowned, his concentration slipping. What was that? He listened again, but heard nothing, so he breathed and kept going. But he was imagination, an overactive one at that, and despite all his efforts, his thoughts slithered away, and he faltered, ruining the magic. The warped energy floated in the air, half-formed things landing in the ground in a clump. Roman stared at it as he tried to think what to do, but his thoughts were gone. And He had a mind blank. Chapter 3. It took effect instantly, a deadly cloud of white that devoured everything. He looked to create, and he watched hopelessly as everything around him disappeared. He wanted to fight it, to fix everything, but the blankness held him captive, and he could only watch. The only way to combat a mind blank was to create something, so he tried. He imagined things, but they were smoke, slithering away just as he reached for them. In fact, Rowan could barely think of anything at all. There was nothing in his head. All he could feel himself deflate, sinking to the non-existent floor in angst. Then he thought of Virgil. Instantly there was a splotch of purple in the blinding brightness, and the white around him turned into slightly gray. Roman directed his thoughts to his three other counterparts, matching Logan's glasses and his tie and his practicality. He thought of Patton, his love, and his cardigan. He thought of Virgil and their arguments in Banner. Around him there were blotches of color, paint splatters of blue and purple and black and red. They collided and collapsed around each other, mixing to create new colors, swirling around in stunning patterns. Slowly, the mind blank receded. Roman directed his thoughts toward Thomas's friends and fans. Instantly, the white was replaced by orange and pink, until there's no more room for white at all. Then Roman shaped the colors, imagining how the mind usually is, until everything went back to normal. Feeling guilty and tired and slightly sick, he retreated from the room and stumbled towards the studio. He needed to make sure Thomas was okay. The host should be fine. Mind blanks tended to only cause his inspiration and motivation. If Roman had cleared it, the idea should be back soon. When he got there, things were already wrong. His side of the control panel was pale and cracked. He remembered Patton and Logan talking about something similar when Virgil was affected by the anxiety pills. But this was different. Roman wasn't affected by any sort of pills. He just had a mind blank. Sure, maybe it damaged his ego. Oh. Thomas's confidence was a fragile thing, something Princey had learned a long time ago. Every time something had gone wrong in the mindscape, Roman had been sure to protect it. Now the mind blank must have wiped away any trace of confidence and ego Thomas had. Roman bit his lip, frustrated tears threatening to spill. He blinked them back harshly, too upset to even bother showing it. The others must be looking for him right now, but he had to make sure Thomas was okay. When he appeared in the living room, Thomas was staring at the turned-off TV, eyes slightly cloudy. Roman bit back curses and spent the last of his energy ended a jolt to Thomas's mind, bringing the host back into reality. Snap back to reality, XD! Instantly, Thomas lurched forward and frowned. Roman waited impatiently. The others would be there soon, and he needed to talk to Thomas before he was slammed for his failure. They wouldn't understand. He knew that. But he needed to clear the confusion and assess the situation. There was a clearing of the throat, and Roman slumped, defeated. It was too late. The others had tracked him, and now they were here, and all he could do was wait for the onslaught of anger. Roman? Logan's voice was cold, but not judgmental. Still, the royal could not bring himself to look at the teacher. There was a huff from the stairs, and Roman tensed as he met Anxiety's eyes. There was a disapproval there, alongside a bitter anger, and maybe just a smear of understanding. Roman was sure he was just imagining it. Roman? What happened? Thomas's voice was groggy, and Roman flinched. He'd done this. Oh, God. He'd done this. He didn't meet Thomas's eyes, lest he saw disappointment. He bowed his head and waited. There was nothing he could do but wait. Chapter 4. He waited for the anger that didn't come. Nobody said anything, and it took him a second to understand that they were waiting for him to explain. They were giving him a chance to defend himself. I'm sorry, was the first thing he said. Virgil was the one to speak first. You're going to have to say a lot more than that, Roman. I know that, he snapped. Hold your judgment for a minute or two, would you? You shouldn't be barking orders right now, Virgil hissed. You nearly did some serious damage. You think I didn't know that? You think I didn't realize that this could have gone worse? You think I didn't this just for fun? Newsflash, Raincloud, you aren't the only one with a job to do. He stared, breathing hard, because really, what could he do or say that they would hear him and understand? There wasn't anything that would help him now. Roman, I'm not upset. Thomas's shaking voice betrayed his real thoughts. I just want to know what happened. The real suddenly found his hands very interesting. My focus slipped, he admitted. He couldn't tell them about the thing in there with him because there probably wasn't anything. Your focus slipped? Logan repeated. Roman, we should be past the stage of focus slipped. You've been doing your job for years. What was so bad that your focus slipped? Nothing, the real mumbled bitterly. You would understand. Of course we would, Patton gushed. Roman, you were with us when Virgil... He didn't finish his sentence. We would accept whatever you're not telling us. What makes you think I'm not telling you something? He said, slightly panicked. If they knew that he just abandoned his job for a little while, then he'd be in even more trouble. Nothing's wrong with me, guys. I'm fine. I just made a mistake. And mistakes are fine, Thomas assured him. We just need to be sure to learn from them. How did you fill the mind blank? Logan asked. Prince shrugged. Just thought about you guys. I figured you'd be mad, so I used that to color it all in. They watched him, and he flushed under their heavy gazes. What? Why did you think we'd be mad at you? Thomas asked slowly. Well, you aren't you? Prince fired back. So I was right. Roman, I have to get back to the studio, he interrupted. I need to make sure there's nothing I missed when I put everything back. He sank down, waiting for them, throat burning and hands shaking. The studio was intact. In fact, it looked brand new. He supposed it was in a way. The thought was comforting. He could hear them talking about his behavior, how jumpy he seemed. Talk all you want, he thought sadly. You'll never say this to my face. I knew it all, anyways. He felt like he'd failed them all, and really he did. He had let them all down in the worst way. He couldn't bounce back from this. This was a permanent stain on his profile. This was his downfall. Slowly, everything that made Prince who he was trickled away. He felt like he was the mind blank. All the color and inspiration he had just in him, marching into a little box in his mind. He taped it shut, locked it away. He'd still feel Thomas's imagination and creativity, and he'd still be able to be Prince Roman, but he wouldn't fail them this time. This time, he was guaranteed success. He didn't notice the shadow that followed him, all slippery scales and sharp teeth. Well, guys, that was the first 4 chapters of La La Land by Bekka911. Like I said, a whole bunch of links are going to be in the description, so don't forget to check that out and subscribe to my friends, because my friends are coolio brulio. And put conspiracy theories about the stuff in the comments, and do your bestes.